Mona thinks I'm crazy. Written by Strawberry 1D, Chapter 1, Scene 1. Ahri sighed deeply when she threw her white doctor's cloak on her hotel room's sofa. Chair. She smirked blissfully as she inhaled the crisp air of Paris. What an awesome day to spend a whole afternoon after the completion of their psychology symposium conference. Now she can spend a few days visiting her painted friends. Ahri shook her head, melancholy, thinking about her life at 27, professionally single and ready to be catified as a certified spinster, now prospects of a blissfully happy ending. All her. Harvard College friends were either in love, engaged, married, or already divorced, but her quirky, straightforward manner and unique gift left her feeling somewhat alone. But she doesn't need validation from a man to be complete. She is a very satisfied and whole woman, even if she's average. Her eyes narrowed as she walked down the cobblestones toward the Louvre Museum. Several notifications lit up her phone from her overprotective parents and her 17-year-old teen sister, who bombarded her about not forgetting to book her and her friends some tickets to a K-pop star's concert that will take place in a week or two in Chicago. Gosh, what a ripoff. Why are the tickets so expensive just to hear loud screaming? Crazies and a singer who might bore you with repetitive soulless songs? But hey, maybe she is. Just an aged fossil when it comes to modern pop culture, like her sister always reminded her. That is the beautiful gift you get when your sibling is 10 years your junior and you practically help raise her. Ahri's cocoa black eyes roamed over the huge glass museum as she stood across the street. Her black-gloved fingers were wrapped around a café de flore paper cup of a still warm vanilla latte with the steam emitting into the crisp Paris air. The Louvre was massive before her, impossibly grand, almost as if a palace collided with it, creating a masterpiece of art. The intricate stone building with the glass pyramid glitters beneath the somewhat overcast sky. Ahri smirked as she just stood there, admiring the artistic masterpiece. She grinned to herself as she crossed the street. I wonder if she is smirking again. She wondered out loud to herself, grinning. It's after 5 p.m. The museum will close at 6, somewhere beyond the archways, and velvet ropes hung a portrait that loved to tease her, mock her love life, and even offer fashion advice. Ahri glided inside the huge foyer. She flipped her dark black hair over her shoulder as she placed her cell phone in her tan-colored trench coat, her coffee in her hand and armed with a wide smile. Her first stop was the Renaissance Hall, home of a famous frenemy, Mona Lisa. There was a very odd vibe in the atmosphere. The security seemed beefed up at every pillar or archway. Ahri furrowed her dark brows, but strangely, her intent for the day was rudely undermined. Jules, the security guard, was turning visitors away from the hallway that leads to the Renaissance Hall. He looked at her with regret. Wait. What do you mean I can't go in? Ahri gasped with open jaws where she stood in, front of a red velvet rope. Jules, the cute, chubby security guard who already knew about her eccentricities since a week ago. Okay, because she came here every day in the late afternoon, like a beauty routine. Jules' grayish-green eyes looked regretful while he shifted uncomfortably on his soles. He knows by now. She furrowed her brows, perplexed, as her cocoa eyes penetrate his eyes, with exasperation. There's a video shoot today, since this morning. Some K-pop star or something. Management just told me on my shift that no one gets through until it's done. Sorry, Ahri, I've always let you in after 6 p.m. Regrettably, I was unable to accommodate you today. Ahri throws her arms in the air theatrically, tossing her straight velvet hair over her other shoulder, a habit when she's agitated or even overly joyful. Jules, you and I both know Mona will not approve of this. She sighed dramatically, looking around with deep disapproval. She looked so forward to visiting with all her oil-painted friends, even though they were. Centuries older than her, she eagerly anticipated their visits. Jules smirks as his deep laugh lines etch at the sides of his mouth. Mona doesn't approve of anything. Ahri stood with raised eyebrows, her hand on her hip. Exactly, she said as her voice started to raise. She once told me that Van Gogh wouldn't last a day in therapy, and oh my, poor Frida didn't deserve a man smelling like cheap cigars. Just then, a small girl with smooth porcelain skin and clear blue eyes furrowed her brows, with perplexity at Jules as she heard the guests talk about paintings as though they had personalities of their own. Jules held back a small smirk, leaned down, and the intern next to him said in a whispering voice, "She's the one I told you about, a PhD psych, talks to portraits but wanted to be a curator." The intern discreetly snickered. The museum was gossiping about this strange American girl with a weird tendency to talk to paintings, but she's so interesting, and they even let her overstay for an hour, and she would entertain the staff with anecdotes from the convos with the paintings. Ahri looked irritated as she waggled her perfectly manicured natural finger in their direction. "I am still here, and I heard that. And for your information, I was going to be the best curator, but no, Dad thought a clinical neuropsychologist was more fitting, and with an IQ of 155, Jules, do you know how hard it is to stay academically stimulated, burnouts, and weak bladders? I need to use the restroom now." She stormed off to the restroom through the other archway. She came back after a few minutes with a calm and sassier attitude, but the way was still blocked. Ahri looked defeated as she decided to spend an hour walking and chatting with the Impressionists. She is quietly giving Monet grief about his mistresses. Then it was the closing announcement. Time seems to have passed quickly. A tall, older janitor stood with his cleaning cart in front of the opening and smiled softly. "Time to go, Doc," he smiled. Ahri sighed deeply and tightened the belt of her trench coat. She passed through the galleries, ready to head back to the hotel to order some Korean kimchi jjigae in her pajamas, as was her intent, until she saw and heard the production crew who were shooting in the Renaissance Hall exit with multiple equipment. Some young guys were laughing and high-fiving each other as they followed suit. Ahri's heart fluttered, because the hall was finally empty, but some of the lights had been dimmed. Only the wall lights next to paintings were slightly illuminated, shadows cast across the huge hall, and she could see each painting clearly illuminated. She quickly looked around cautiously and snuck in like a spy, her caramel Jimmy Choo, heels clacking against the polished marble tiles. "Mona!" Ahri hissed, standing with her hands on her hips as she faced the legendary portrait. "You're an absolute troll. I swear you're the one who rigged this, aren't you?" Mona, in her smugness, stood back with her eternal smirk, always judging. "Gosh, it seems you are still judging me for being an old maid at 27. You are worse than your fake counterpart in the Chicago Metropolitan Museum, at least that Mona loved to. Compliment me even if they are 4. Mona just smirked, a strange glow in her eyes. Ahri raised her eyebrows and said with a haughty tone, "At least I didn't pose for my toxic ex-boyfriend's portfolio just to be hung on a wall for eternity." But Monet's smirk just deepened. Ahri snorted, "Oh, shut it, you little smug wrench. I'm going to talk to someone else, like my boy George there. At least he appreciates me and finds me quite interesting." Ahri spun around dramatically on her thin caramel heels, intending to walk off, but her foot slipped on the glossy tiles. She heard a crack. Ahri landed hard, sprawled like a snow angel across the floor, her hair in a disheveled mess. What makes it worse is that one heel snapped, and there goes her pride. Deeply shattered. Ahri groaned dissatisfied, hurling profanities in Korean, at least no stuck-up French. Visitors will judge her. Oh my word, this is totally stupid. This is so me. She started to whine aloud, tears were burning behind her eyelids. I get a day off, one bloody day, and now I have to hobble back to the hotel as if I'm a Victorian governess waiting for a chivalrous knight to whisk me away on a white horse. Maybe Mona's right. I'll die alone surrounded by overpriced candle essences, holders, and freaking plant books. She sighed, just sitting there on the floor, feeling sorry for herself. Then she heard a snicker echoing in a dark corner. Ahri froze and looked bewildered. Around. She didn't notice any movement around her. Who's there? She called out, a pang of fear in her voice. She brushed a strand from her face as she squinted around. Then, from behind a marble pillar, emerged a tall figure in baggy denim jeans, a vintage, brownish Gucci leather jacket and silver rings catching the dim light, his hair slicked back. Under a brownish snapback framed his sharp cheekbones and jawline. But what was so comforting was the giant smile on his face. She blinked twice. He looked Asian. It was young Hoseok, Jhope from BTS. However, she didn't recognize him. He stood there with a wide, amused smile on his lips. She said cautiously, trying to sit up on one elbow. Are you lost? The museum. Closed like 10 minutes ago. She tried to sound helpful, but failed due to the slight ache in her foot. He chuckled heartily, crouching down next to her. His eyes sparkled as he offered a hand to help her up. What a gentleman. He pursed his lips, suppressing a smile as he helped her up. Her foot wasn't sprained or broken. Thank God for small miracles. Nuna, I think you slipped on Mona's attitude, he uttered with amusement. Ahri narrowed her eyes at him. He was clearly mocking her. Do I know you? His eyes sparkled mischievously. Oh, you will, he said cryptically.